Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Say Report. This is your host Sejan Sarwick, along with my host companion Devin Decker.
I'm Devin
We are
Decker.
uh, we are diving in today, apparently.
I guess. I don't know. I thought you were going to hold up your sword. You were all like, let's
Uh,
do this.
yeah, man, I'm ready to go. Doesn't mean that I'm necessarily ready to lead, but sure.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, actually. A lot of people ready to go, but not necessarily ready to lead. And that brings us to what? No. Welcome to the Stay Report, a show where we try to be positive in a world of negativity. It's
About
philo-
everything,
it's
anything.
philosophical. It's beautiful. Sometimes we say things that are not funny. So
I would, I would, I would argue that we're not very often philosophical either. We're pretty on the nose about what we talk about.
Oh, I guess that's true. We're not really existential so
Yeah,
much.
no, no, not really.
It's my
Although there,
personal philosophy to be positive, though, so that's how I justify it.
there you go.
So,
An
yeah,
hour of
welcome.
us throwing our personal philosophy at you. Let's see, what do we got today?
I don't know what we have today. What are we talking about today?
Um, I don't know. It's been a rough week.
I kinda, yeah. I mean, it's been a pretty good week. It only got rough recently, right at the end.
Yeah, that's true. That's entirely fair. But no, I mean overall, this has been a little bit of a downer week for me. So I'm hoping that you were gonna have something to pick us all up today. I tried getting into a couple of games this week. ESO, sorry,
What
Elder
is
Scrolls
ESO?
Online.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, I realized as soon as I said it that I should probably break it down a little bit more than that. Elder Scrolls Online is a game that when it first came out a while back, I was deep into. For anybody that doesn't know, it just takes any of the worlds of like Skyrim and Morrowind and all that stuff, and you just get to do a lot of MMORPG nonsense with it. You know, fetch quests and go out there and kill this thing that 20 other people are killing, but you have to specifically kill it in your game for some reason. um,
Hold up.
you know,
What is the fourth one? Isn't Morrowind the third one?
let's see. So there's Skyrim, Morrowind, Oblivion.
Oblivion. Thank you. That's.
Yeah,
I just was
yeah, yeah.
curious. I don't
Yeah,
know these games. I don't play the Elder Scroll games.
yeah, it was weird because I was never really big into the whole fantasy role-playing stuff. You know, I was never a Dragon Age guy. I was never, as much as I love D&D from a tabletop perspective, and that's all those games are based on. I don't know, something about playing them by myself was never fun. You know, what really got me into those types of games was the flip side of that was Fallout. You know, when on the off years when they weren't doing a an Oblivion game or a Morrowind game, they were doing a Fallout game, and those were the ones that got me. The sci-fi, something about the sci-fi setting, you know, all the same idea, you know, factions and making sure that you're making friends and the right ones, and you're killing anybody that's not your friend in the other ones, you know, and that sort of stuff. Also, every story seems to be revolve around you being the savior of the entire world. Um, but you know, I just something about the fantasy setting just never really clicked for me. So when Elder Scrolls Online came out, I wasn't rushing out to get it, but man, like everybody and their mother got a hold of that game when it came out. It's been out for, God, what, 3, 4 years now, and it's still huge, man.
I
And
don't
I
know
don't know.
anything. This is the thing. I am not a fan of first person games. I'm gonna just throw that out there. So, and I know that you can go third person in Fallout. I don't know if you can go third person in these Elder Scroll games. These Elder Scroll games, the way I
You can,
say it. You can? Okay.
yeah, yeah, they let you change perspective
It
like that.
just they don't work for me, and I don't know why they don't work for me. First of all, I think it's crazy that Skyrim is like 10 years old at this point.
Yeah, right. And they're still releasing it and updating it. Yeah,
Like that's, and I think that the success of Skyrim has sort of changed the landscape of video games in a lot of ways. It's where we get video games as services. It's
uh,
where we get Destiny 2 being what Destiny 2 is.
yeah. Skyrim is definitely a prime example of that sort of thing. Working. It is the ideal. I mean, and even then, they still have their problems from time to time. But essentially, all of the crap that you hear about Destiny, where people are really upset with the way things happen, or any of these online games where they're really not happy about things like loot boxes and all this extra free to play nonsense that goes along with it, like all of the bad stuff. Skyrim. Skyrim and Elder Scrolls Online don't really seem to catch much of that slack. I don't know what it is that Bethesda and those guys get that nobody else seems to be able to get a handle on, you know? For one thing, the game definitely has some pretty serious jank to it. Whereas, like, I feel like Destiny's whole marketing thing is like, look at how pretty and beautiful everything is, and then whenever something doesn't work in that environment, you feel really hurt by it. Whereas, like with like anything coming out of the Elder Scrolls Online stuff, I never expect it to run smoothly. So maybe that level of expectation isn't put on ESO like some of these other games are.
So I get it. So this I can actually relate to this in a way that I'm very happy about. And
Yeah.
that's like with I play older games, right? I play these older video games
Right, right.
where they were subject to rigorous testing in a way that I feel like modern games are not subject to. But even with that rigorous testing, you find these little like issues. I call them issues, but a lot of the times the issues are used for good and not for evil.
Right.
Case in point is like the original version of Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. You can use the mirror to erase blocks, and you can do the dash where you can like activate the hammer or other things like that, where then they fix those for the North American release, and those things make the game more fun. Those like little glitches that
Yeah,
people
man.
have found, and that's why people run the Japanese version of the game, because it's faster than the US version of the game.
Well, and so like you basically have this whole marketing ploy with stuff like that where it's no longer a bug, it's a feature, right? And then that's something that is actually it's really funny. It's actually something that people look forward to almost sometimes now, because as somebody that doesn't play Fallout, like there's a ton of stuff in it, man, that I think that you would actually get a huge kick out of that is like not anything I think they ever intended, like dialogue options and reactions and things that like those they clearly intended because they had to create them, right? But like the way that characters interact with each other, these subtle moments where just things go horribly wrong, but usually in your favor. Yeah, I had a little guy on fire. He ran into a building and killed everybody inside because he just lit the whole place on fire. Like that sort of thing, right? And so it's like at some point you have to wonder, is it the systems working and that all come out to play in this, or is there straight up just like a broken bug? And sometimes you can't tell, and so you really can't tell if it's just straight up broken or if it was meant to do what it did. And so like I, ESO hooked me. Like it's weird. It's weird. Like I think it's because everybody was in it. I think it's because everybody was playing it that I was able to get on. So like essentially it one of the big things I love about D&D and that type of tabletop role playing is the community creation aspects, right? Like the idea that we're all working together to create this world, create this story. And so like to remove that when I play a game like Skyrim loses a lot for me personally. And like clearly that's not, clear it is probably the most popular game in video game history. Like at some point we're gonna have to go back and look at the numbers and see how often people bought Skyrim, and it's starting to look like Super Mario. Like every time it comes out on a new system, somebody buys a copy of it. Like and so I don't mean to be like implying that in any way that Skyrim and any of these games are just like not successful or not well done. It's just that they just never really clicked with me, and I think it's because of part of it was the loneliness factor, and that's why Fallout kind of works for me in a way that Skyrim doesn't, is because also there's something about that sci-fi aspect of that, like that loner in a sci-fi setting that I don't know I can get into in a little bit more, because it's also not like I don't play single player games, like I play plenty of single player games, but there was just
It's the storylines, and,
yeah.
and that's where it comes from. It's not like a lot of like, well, let's look at the Fellowship of the Ring, right?
Mhm.
Which I don't know, is that where like elves and stuff came from? They had to have existed before Tolkien, right?
Yeah, no. Tolkien's it's a very good example of like a bunch of material that existed before, but he kind of like solidified it all into a very good lore that people kind of now just look at as like the official canon. But no, that sort of stuff has existed for
What would
centuries,
yeah,
if not,
especially
yeah.
since a lot of them are based on like mythology of various cultures,
Right, yeah.
such as trolls and the like. But you look at something like the Fellowship of the Ring, and the whole point of that first book and that first movie and that first story is that these people had to come together in order to defeat this evil.
Right, right.
Where like a lot of the science fiction things, it is people walking around desolation alone. So when you're treated to desolation in a fantasy setting, it veers from the norm in a way that we're not expecting ever.
Yeah, that is definitely some of it. But you know, it's not even like I don't like new stories in these settings. I don't know. There's something about wanting to share the world of fantasy. I want it to be populated, right? When you talk about a fantasy world, like think about something like Harry Potter, right? Like J.K. Rowling does this wonderful job of filling that world with just all sorts of things, and not everything gets a backstory. Not everything gets an explanation. You know.
Until
Now,
20 years later,
yeah, I was gonna say,
which
yeah, here we are 20 years later when when we have the ability and the time to fill in those gaps, that's one thing. But like in the moment of writing and reading, the world feels so full that like one book can't contain it. Like that's what I want from a fantasy novel. Whereas like with a sci-fi story, something about that genre, like being able to just keep it very simple. You know, there should still be some implication of world building. Like, I'm not saying that I'll do with none of that whatsoever. Like, I still enjoy that, but like, think about something like the very first Alien film, right? Like, it's just a crew of people just on a ship in space. There's nothing more to it than that, really. Like, the settings are all pretty similar to one another, and a lot of what they go through happens within like a 24-hour period, right? Like, there's like a unity of time and place in that setting, so it's very, very, very simple. I don't think there's a fantasy story that I've ever seen that works in that same way, right?
yeah, you're not
I
wrong
can't
about
think
that.
of one.
Well, the other thing is, in science fiction stories, space is infinite, right? Comparably to a fantasy world, it's finite, right? Because
Right,
very rarely
right.
are they leaving. Like they might go to different realms, but even then, like realm in their world is sort of like a different country.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, well, I mean, there's a weird grounding in our reality that has to take place at some point, right? With a fantasy novel, it feels like it's much more in your face because there are trees, there are grass, there are, you know, there are homes, there are people, there's structure, there's society. Whereas like because space is infinite, at some point that stuff doesn't have to exist, right? Like you get so far out that like think anything is possible.
Well, then there's also the fact that like with space being so big in most science fiction stories, it is banana pants that people keep running into each other.
Right.
I live in Rhode Island. I live in the state of Rhode Island, and there are people that I have not seen for like 10 years. And I live in a comparably small like population, right? Like my microcosm is not that big. And there are
No.
people that I have not seen for 10 years
No, the odds are definitely in your favor that you're
that
going
I'm
to
going to
run
run into
into everybody,
somebody.
but you still don't, right?
Yeah.
You don't run into everybody.
But
Yeah.
space, which is literally limitless, right?
Uh-huh.
Growing all of the time based upon the expanse of the Big Bang Theory. Um, the fact that these people keep running into each other, it's infinitesimal. The
Yeah.
odds.
Yeah. I
so
mean,
so like
look at something like
desolation in
Star
that,
Trek
yeah.
that is entirely based on them just running into shit.
And
Oh, look at
often
this
the
problem we
same
stumbled
things,
across. Yeah, yeah,
like good for Khan that he got his wrath
yeah.
because he has no idea that like Kirk is going to eventually go to that outpost.
Well, yeah, right. How could he? Again, space is infinite. What are the odds of that?
I guess I'm going to hedge my bet. First of all, Kirk has had millions of lovers, right? Second of all, he probably has millions of illegitimate children throughout the cosmos, right?
Yep.
His 5-year mission was to fuck anything that moved and set up franchises. So Khan basically was like, well, of all the ladies that Kirk has made sweet sweet love to and blessed them with a child, I guess I'm gonna focus on this one.
This particular one. Yeah. Um, yeah,
And he
man.
got lucky. Like
Well, and I mean, and so that's why you end up with like really goofy like things. I'm thinking of Doctor Who, like the idea that he has been around, or they have been around now, I should say, have been around for so long and I mean in the timeline within the story, they have existed for so long that they kind of can be everywhere and anywhere and run into all of this stuff, right? Right? Like so. It they write in these really awesome like tropey things that I fucking love, and it's what leads to things like regeneration and all this sort of nonsense in Doctor Who, right? And I love that kind of sci-fi like Band-Aid, like, oh shoot, there's a hole in this plot. What can we do to fill it, right? And in sci-fi, the possibilities seem endless, and in fantasy, you can always say, well, magic, but for me, that feels weird. I don't know what it is. If you say to me, I don't know, science, I'm like, oh, okay. But if you say to me, I don't know, magic, I'm just like, no, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. Like my brain just doesn't
And the
doesn't
craziest
click.
thing about that is some technology and science is so advanced that it is indistinguishable from magic. So
Thanks.
really, you
Thanks, Thor.
or like actual like actual human philosophers
Yeah,
and
no, Thor.
scientists. No, Thor. Thor is what we're gonna go with. No, it's fine. That's completely cool. But it is. It's just one of those things. So it's just that like I like science because science at least like tries to give an explanation, and science fiction, science is right there. It's the first part. Imagine if it were called Phi-Sci, people would fucking hate it. Oh, the science is secondary.
This is
the
all
fiction
just
front and
fictional
center.
science.
Yeah.
None of this is.
Like the fact, like I don't know. I always think about that episode of Futurama where they go to the Star Trek planet, and Fry's like, someone will come up with something needlessly complicated, and then it will be explained away with an easy analogy. And it's like, but yeah, but that's what science kind of is.
You know, that is the at least that's what science thrives to be, right? Like, is that idea that we will unlock a great mystery, but science will allow us to understand it in a way that is it's like pouring a glass of milk. We just get it.
Where
Yeah,
like
no,
magic, it's like, I don't know, he snapped his fingers and the Balrog was dead.
and you'll never understand it. And yeah, no, I mean, unless you spend your entire life and probably multiple lives studying it.
And you'll
Yeah, there's
have
definitely
multiple
that
lives
element
because
to it.
magic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that's definitely some of it, right? Is the limits feel different in a lot of ways. But yeah, so ESO, it comes along, and despite my you know hesitance to really get into a game like that,
Apprehension.
there we go. Everybody starts playing it, and I mean, I jump on the bandwagon because I mean that's what half the fun of these online games are. Even if I'm not gonna enjoy the game itself, like I'm gonna at least have some fun with my friends, right? And I got way into it, man. I had like 4 characters going so that I could do a bunch of different like classes and styles and all that sort of stuff. I was diving in when I was on my own. I had 1 character that was only when I was with groups, and I just got real into it for a while. And the thing is nowadays, like you're saying with these games of service, is they don't really die. So like I got into it for a while. I left, and then an update would come out, and I'd go back, and then I'd leave again. And now I just haven't gone back in like a few years, right? Until this week when I jumped in, and it still had all of my characters, all of my information, all of this other stuff tagged onto it, plus a whole bunch of new stuff. And it looks a million times better because it's updated a bunch of times since the last time I played it. And I just got like really weirdly kind of sucked back into it for all of a hot second until I just started. They've just made some really weird quality of life changes to that game that I just don't understand. Like they've limited how much information is surfaced on the heads up display. Um, so like that's a bit of a pain in the ass for me now because I don't know what spells I have equipped. And this may all be stuff that I can change back, but they also don't surface like how you do that, right? Also, they've added a whole bunch of weird stuff with the microtransactions that are in it. You know, essentially a lot of the issues that people have with some of these other games like Destiny, like Fortnite, like Overwatch, where there's all these like extra bells and whistles that you have to pay for that weren't in ESO when it first started 5-6 years ago now. I forget how long it's actually been, but like now they're starting to kind of creep into it in a way, and I'm worried because it's a game I don't care enough about to really like to really like get online and like mount an assault on, you know, like I'm not that kind of guy to like jump onto forums and start bitching and moaning about how things are changing. You know, I'll do that on a podcast for sure, but but you know what I mean? Like I'm not out here to like incite the masses for like drastic change, you know. Now, don't get me wrong, things like loot boxes and stuff being investigated by governments, like I think that's all good because some of that stuff was getting heinous, you know. So like I'm all for that sort of stuff happening, and you know, people not be treating people like shit is definitely a-okay in my book. Like we need to make sure that that everybody's kind of keeping their cool with this stuff. But like but when it comes to this little like tweaks and changes that everybody else kind of just understands because, you know, they're catering to an audience that grew up on Minecraft, that grew up on phone games, that grew up on this microtransaction free to play style gaming that isn't me anymore. And so like slowly what it is I'm watching this game grow further and further away from me, you know, not in any meaningful way that I can stop or should stop, but it still sucks to watch this game that had finally hooked me kind of move beyond me.
That's real poignant. I'm gonna just be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's part of the reason why things have been such a bummer, you know, because I think I talked last week about how I'm trying to find that game, you know, I'm trying to find that next thing that I really want to dive into, whether it's a series or at this point even just a game that really just kind of hooks me. And I don't know, hoping to maybe fill the gap until I can get a hold of a copy of Spider-Man with something like ESO, something I don't know, something that is meant to kill time. And it's just I haven't found it yet, you know.
I get that. I mean, I think that's why Spider-Man worked for me so well. Like they were smart with that game. They released it just as the weather was starting to get more fall-y, more autumnal. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I didn't feel bad sitting inside playing for 6 hours because it was cold and rainy outside. Like it's
Right,
like I'm not missing out by being inside hooked to my PlayStation. But now that I've done that, it's one of those things where like I've beaten it twice, and I can't believe that I've beaten it twice. And spoilers for Stay Report Junior, Dale just finished it Friday night, so they're going to do a whole discussion about it because those two have finished the game. And watching her complete it, I'm like, yeah, there's some issues with this. Watching someone else play it,
yeah.
um, and that is why, like, thank God of Gods, I am so happy that it was announced this week that Symphony of the Night is finally coming to PS4
Oh man,
because I love throwing money at Symphony of the Night, especially since I didn't throw money at it when it first came out.
yeah.
Right? Like I
But it's
never
another,
played it on PlayStation.
but it's another one of those games that it doesn't matter how many times it comes out on a new system, people will rebuy it.
Right. And they're not being dicks about it, like which is kudos to Konami because they totally could be. But like it's $15 for Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood. Like you
Nice.
get two games that are great, like that are the definitive Castlevania experience, and it's $15, and like that is awesome. And I'm excited to play that again. And I'm realizing that like that's what I'm looking for. Those are the type of games that I'm looking for, which is why last night couldn't sleep. It's like 1 in the morning, and someone throws up on Facebook, if you're looking for a Symphony of the Night style game, try out Time Spinner on the PS4. So what I did before we recorded was download Time Spinner, and I gave it an hour of my time, and it's awesome. But like I don't know if I can recommend that to you. Like I don't know if that's
Yeah,
your
yeah.
type of game. Like that it doesn't seem like your type of game. I like these large sprawling worlds. First of all, the best part about this game is that it's totally like The Messenger. To the fact that the main character Looney is totally a time messenger. That's her title. And the whole thing is that like when terror strikes, she's said to go back in time and warn everybody. Like, and I'm like, wow. So I'm just like into games about messengers right now.
Time traveling
I
messengers.
should play Paperboy, right? He's
You,
a messenger.
they ever make a Postman movie with Kevin Costner? Well, they made the movie, but did they ever make a video game based off of it, like they
No,
did
no,
with Waterworld?
they didn't make one of Waterworld either. That was a Simpsons joke.
Did they really? Did
No,
they not really? For
no.
some reason, I thought that was one that existed. I was about to say I don't think I ever played it, so I guess that explains
I mean, the
why.
joke is that it
Um,
costs 40 quarters to play, and then Milhouse takes one step and gets game over. So it's like it's a lot of money for nothing, for no substance. It's a great Simpsons joke. I'm not gonna lie, but as far as I know, there was no actual game of that. Was there a Cutthroat Island video game? Like that's my
Yes,
question.
I believe there must have been on
On Super
Nintendo, right?
Nintendo, right?
Super Nintendo, and it was probably side scrolling, and you probably just killed a bunch of dudes, which had nothing to do with Cutthroat Island. Um, which, but yeah, I don't know. I do get into games. That's the weird thing, right? Is like there's not like a genre that I won't play. Eventually, I find a game in pretty much every style and in pretty much every genre that I can play and get into. It's these weird ups and downs for me where like something grabs me and I just get super into it. Like when I got into BioShock last year and played through all three of the games plus Minerva's Den, like within like 2 months. I don't know what it was. Something just really got me about BioShock for that moment, and so I was like deep in it, right? The same goes for Darksiders this year. Like I don't know why, but I suddenly went back and played both of those games in a row and all the DLC for Darksiders 2. So like I I get into weird games. I get into games in a weird way. I just can't figure out what it is that hooks me in a game, and I'm trying to find that next one. And because I don't know what I'm looking for, it's really killing me. But maybe something like Symphony of the Night, maybe this Time Messenger one is
Time
the way to
Spinner, it's
go.
so good because it basically is like a side-scrolling Chrono Trigger. The art style is so Chrono Trigger,
Man,
and
okay.
I just like I haven't died yet, which is fun. Like there's a fun to that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And I've beaten like two bosses, and it's really good. Like I'm excited. Like that's probably what I'm gonna do today after we finish recording is play through this game, and I'm
Nice.
excited for that. But then it's like I'm always kind of chasing that next high. Like Mega Man 11 comes out on Tuesday, and
Yeah.
I've played the demo a bunch of times. I don't know if I'm excited about it though. Like I can't wait
Yeah.
to play through the game and then discuss it with you because they've made changes that are very strange to me as someone who's been playing Mega Man since I was literally 3 years old.
Yeah, and I bet if I looked up a list of upcoming games, I would be able to tell you one or two that I'm excited about, but there isn't anything coming out soon that like my brain has latched onto as like gotta play that game when it comes out. I just gotta. You know what I mean? That's also part of it for me is there just hasn't been a game yet this year or in a while really that I've been like looking forward to for release. That just hasn't happened, you know? Um
Well, that's where my current game that should be that. Like yes, Mega Man 11, but whatever. That's coming out. That was I took the day off as soon as I knew the release date. Like I'm
mhm.
like I'm gonna play Mega Man 11. I'm excited about it. But the next one after that is probably Red Dead Redemption. And as they release more and more information about it, I'm like afraid that it's going to be loot boxed and online mode and not as much fun as the original was.
Yeah, I think one of my big fears for the Red Dead Redemption thing, and you know, like they've never, it, Rockstar has never really kind of done this. But I think the uh, Grand Theft Auto Online stuff that has been so successful, I'm worried that they're going to see the success of that and the money in that, and just try and just basically make this Grand Theft Auto like with cowboys, which is actually so not what the first Red Dead Redemption was, right? That was definitely the skeleton of it, but the meat on its bones was so different than anything, you know. Than anything in a Grand Theft Auto game, and especially not Grand Theft Auto Online, which is just a ridiculous whole like money sink route, right? Like people can spend upwards of thousands upon thousands of dollars in that game if they want to just have all sorts of extra crap in the online version of it, and that's crazy to me. But like people do it and people love it and they spend that money, and so I'm worried that the Red Dead Redemption thing is going to go that way for sure. But that's the thing is like again, it's another game that like it's really cool. It's going to be out there, and I would love to play it, but it's not something that I'm like I'm not going to go out and put a pre-order on it. What's that game that I would consider putting a pre-order on? You know,
Hopefully,
and I
no
am
game
I'm not,
because
and I
pre-order
was no
culture is such a relic of the past.
I mean, well, I don't know if it's necessarily a relic of the past. It's definitely like one of those terrible things that we look back on as I can't believe we allowed this to happen as a society. But it really has only existed for the last like 10 years. um, but like 15 years, I guess. It's getting old, man. But but like I see the benefit of things like pre-order stuff. I think it started from an okay place. This idea that like retailers on games that they weren't too sure about having, suddenly they get like a dozen pre-orders on it and they think, well, maybe it is worth having an extra copy or two in this, you know what I mean? And so it shows retailers that the to which games to take a chance on in a way that they didn't really have a way to gauge before that, right? I understand the merits of things like pre-ordering, so I'm not afraid to pre-order something if it's something that I'm looking forward to. Like if it's something I'm looking forward to, if it's a game that I believe in, and if on top of that, if it's not all tied up in the pre-order nonsense of like pre-order bonuses, like divorced from the pre-order bonus conversation, I'm all down for throwing $5 down to make sure that GameStop has a copy of that game when it comes out, depending on what that game is, right? Like I think the last thing I really pre-ordered was BioShock Infinite, and I am very happy I did. Like I stand by the fact that I did. I couldn't tell you right now if I got any type of bonus for pre-ordering it, but I do know that I pre-ordered it. And I went and I picked it up on day one, and they had my copy waiting for me, and I was able to play it, and I was able to have a good time because of it. And like, so no harm, no foul there.
I
And
don't want to
I don't
turn this
know.
into like crap on GameStop, but it bothers me that the only way to really get a sealed copy is to pre-order it from them.
Yeah, that's their whole new thing of like opening everything, every game. Also, they have an entire like this is a little inside baseball, but they have an entire inside culture of like renting games to each other. Like people will take games home for 5 days and then they'll bring them back and then they'll be sold as if they're new copies, but it's definitely a used copy. And like as long as they treat the disc well, you'd never know, right? But you get that one idiot that like scratches it up or leaves a coffee stain on the manual, and then you buy a new game and you get it home and you're like, why is there crap in my new game? And like that's it, it's a really yes, there's a lot of really weird stuff about the way that GameStop handles things.
Yes, and I mean like that's an issue. Like if I'm buying something and it's coming to me and it does not have shrink wrap on it, it's very difficult for me to like accept that that is new. It's
Yeah.
not new. This is not new anymore. As soon as the shrink is off, it's not new.
Well, especially for a company that's trying to get so hard into the collectible culture, like you think that they would like know basics like, hey, don't pull the plastic off of something because somebody might be buying two copies of a game, one copy to open and one copy to just keep sealed forever. Because there's some people out there that do that kind of stuff, especially with when particular types of games come out. Then we've seen nowadays that some games unopened can be worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and they're just kind of killing that collector's culture on the gaming side of things while trying to feed it in the knickknack side of things that they're carrying board games and pop vinyl figures now.
And it's all and I mean in collectible culture, like if we want to boil it down to the worst part of it, is all about assumed and assigned value,
Yeah,
right? Like I have two pops looking at me right now. Is the Phantom from from the
nice,
movie, and I
nice.
have a purple Smurf from the Black Smurfs, which were made purple when they came to America. Because and those things mean stuff to me because the Phantom gets to sit with the ring I got when I saw the Phantom in theaters in 1996. And the Purple Smurf, I love that story, and I think it's very interesting, and I never expected that to happen.
Yeah,
And I look at him and I'm reminded all the time that like this is a story that means something to me and it meant enough to other people that he was put out in collectible form.
hmm
It's why I'll buy a Coach pop figure if they ever do Cheers pop figures. Like I probably wouldn't buy the whole bar unless it came with a playset and I could set everybody up like they're at the bar. Oh God, Funko, don't do that. Don't take this idea. I'll pay. I'll buy it all. I'll put Norm right where Norm is, and Cliff, and you gotta have what's his freaking name? Paul. I love Paul. You gotta have the old guy in the hat,
Oh
and
man.
Coach just watching over it all.
But
Um,
it's
but it's
that
one of
idea of
those.
that shared community, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and I think that's again that's a really easy way for me to get into games, to get into nerd culture. Like there has to be like a community of people involved in it too, and so I again, I don't know why I'm okay with doing some stuff solo and not this. I don't know why I'm having issues with like some of the new online gaming nonsense that like I don't know. Like I understand where it all comes from. I don't know, man. There's nothing out there right now that's really just grabbing me, and I'm just a little bummed about it. That's all. Like I want a new video game to be excited about. I want a new television show to be excited about. I want a new movie to be excited about, and it just hasn't come along yet.
That's not true. You
Oh.
told me
Oh.
that you've been indoctrinated by one Murphy Brown. Where's the excitement there, Sejan?
No,
Spill the
that's
beans.
well. So it's hard to get excited about it for one simple reason, because the entire point of it is going to basically be that the world is going to shit. So it's kind of hard to be happy about that. But no, yeah, Murphy Brown is back, man. Like this is it's I had no idea this was happening. I should also put that out there. Like first and foremost, when I turned my TV on to CBS at 8:30 the other night, and there was a brand new episode of Murphy Brown on, I
Oh my god, you're mountain time now. That just
uh-huh
occurred to me.
uh-huh
So it was 8:30 for you. You
yes.
lucky bastard. It's the only reason I live in the middle of this country is
Yeah,
TV
man.
starts an hour earlier.
Yeah, man.
Sorry.
Yes. No, no, no. It definitely hit me that t at the in all of this sitcom watching too. Yeah, because we've been trying to pay attention to the new shows that are coming back, and for the first time ever, we have like really, really good antenna access because we live up on the side of a mountain, and Salt Lake City is basically beaming its signal like up and at us, and so because we're so high and because we're basically like a wall, we collect up all of that signal so well that we get like 36 to 40 channels just off of antenna, like no problem. Like it's kind of like this weird like thing that I never really thought about, but digital signal antenna is pretty awesome. You know, we get three different football games on the weekends. It's great. Um, so yeah, so we were trying to figure out what we were going to watch with some of the sitcom stuff, and we were flipping around the other night. We watched the not just sitcoms, all new television, because one of the other ones that we watched a couple of days ago was the first episode of Dick Wolf's new show FBI.
Oh, I'm
Um,
excited. No
it
spoilers. I love
is
Missy Peregrine so
it
much.
is super intense. No spoilers, but man, I was like, I again, no idea what I was getting into because I don't watch much live television anymore. Usually, I wait until things are on for a few months and then I catch them in like bulk on Hulu or Netflix. So this was real weird diving into this stuff. But yeah, we ended up watching Murphy Brown the other night, and it's awesome, man. Like, so they clearly the whole point is they're bringing Murphy Brown back in a way that they have tried to bring Roseanne back, and in a weird way, a little bit of what they're doing with Last Man Standing with reviving that as well. Although that's a little bit of
That's
a
a
different story.
different story.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit of a different story, but essentially, like, but it's in that same vein, in that it's all about the political side of things, right? The politics are key here, and I mean that's always been the case with Murphy Brown. But take a look at that with Roseanne and Last Man Standing. The idea of those being conservative sitcoms in this world where they feel like there's no that voice is not heard, right? Though I would argue with both of them, the point was never supposed to be that they were pro conservative. But anyway, um,
Oh, I could definitely. I mean, that's the argument I was going to mount after Murphy Brown is how bipartisan Last Man Standing is. Because
yeah,
watching that first episode, Mike Baxter, Tim Allen's character, is very clearly a conservative, but
yeah.
that does not mean that he is. He is shitting on stupid people. He is not shitting on people because they are Democrats.
Yes, but outside of the culture of the TV show and in popular
Yeah.
culture,
Oh,
the
yeah.
problem
No. No.
is,
No. No. I
yeah,
gotcha. I'm just saying.
yeah, no, 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 but that's key, right? Is the idea that it's Last Man Standing and Roseanne are both seen as these shows that are conservative, like milestones, which is ridiculous because as we're talking about, the points of those shows is always supposed to be like the idea that there is a middle ground, and often, more often than not, the very conservative character is very much shown to be in the wrong, all in the Family and things like that. Like, there's this weird idea that those characters, both what's his name,
Mike Baxter.
Mike Baxter and Roseanne Barr, are both
Connor,
supposed to be
Roseanne
oh
Connor. If you
Connor,
can't
right?
go with
Yeah,
fictional
yeah,
name once, and then
yeah. I forgot the Connors are in the show. But yeah, so like that those characters are somehow like these conservative, like idols that are to be like to to be protected in some weird way, because if you ever watch any of those shows, they just get ripped apart. But anyway, so that's the way that those are seen, right? So that is what Murphy Brown is trying to do, but on a liberal side of things. And like you think, but aren't all other shows liberal? Well, yeah, that's where Murphy Brown kind of comes in. And whereas like other shows will definitely push liberal politics, Murphy Brown comes in with a giant stick and just beats the crap out of anything that isn't liberal. It is maybe the least subtle sitcom I have seen in a while when it comes to the political leanings. And again, it's always kind of been that way, right? Like that was always the case with Murphy Brown, and so I shouldn't be so surprised. It was just really interesting because essentially you get the sense of like you can't do that on television as you're watching it. Like as you're watching an episode of the show, I'm just thinking, I can't believe that they think they're going to find an audience for this, because the liberal side of the fence, the Democratic side of the fence, very often doesn't like it when people aren't like subtle and understanding and like trying to find a middle ground. Like their whole shtick, their whole game is like trying to bring people together, right? And you don't do that by pointing out what an idiot the other side is. Now, some people could argue that that's half the problem with liberals and Democrats, is that they don't ever like put their foot down about their side of things, right? And again, that's where Murphy Brown is coming in to like fill in the gap.
Well,
Like,
even like just discussing that, one of the reason why the other two shows you brought up, Roseanne and Last Man Standing, are vilified is not just the fact that the main characters are these conservative pillars, but also probably because they're preaching this thing where it's like, we all kind of got to get along, though, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
and they're not for that. I mean, you just said that. If I'm misinterpreting, I'm sorry, but
well, it's the idea being that like as much as these shows like Last Man Standing were trying to do that whole like we need to get along thing, the problem is, again, outside of the culture of the television show itself, that's just not the way that the world is working, right? And I think that that's part of why and I think that's part of the reason why those shows get viewed as conservative shows, is because once you step away from the show itself and you just have to look at it, it ends up being forced into a box. And the box that they chose to get forced into was the conservative one, as opposed to the liberal one. You know, instead of really leaning in on Last Man Standing into making him and into making Mike Baxter look like an idiot, you know, they tried really hard to make him a lovable character, and to the point where they felt like it just wasn't working anymore, which is why that show got canceled in the first place. Now, again, there's all sorts of ways you can argue whether or not it was, and I have no, I have no problem with a show like Last Man Standing coming back and existing in the world. Like, I don't have an issue for it. It's not my kind of show, and considering the politics around everything outside of it, like, I have no real interest in supporting it or anything like that. Like, that's just not, it's not for me. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be on television, though, you know? Whereas, like, Murphy Brown is definitely a show that I actually am considering trying to figure out how to sit down every night and watch. I know that, like, not being a Nielsen house, my watching numbers don't necessarily matter, but with digital signal nowadays and all of this stuff, you can never really be sure what they're tracking. Also, if it ever pops up anywhere, it is CBS, so I doubt it'll ever be up on like Hulu or anything, but I'll give it a watch anywhere that I can to give it that support and those numbers, because that's the kind of show that I do want on TV, right? So like, I don't know, man. It's really weird because they had to put a show like Last Man Standing or Roseanne, like, felt like they needed to shape themselves to fit into a conservative box. And so Murphy Brown's just coming around and just being like, all right, well, we're going to do the same thing, but it's going to be all liberal. It's going to be all Democratic. And it is, like I said, it is not subtle. It is, it is very blunt. It is right there, fists in the air, ready to go. I mean, the entire episode ends in this whole moment of Murphy Brown basically being like, bring it on Trump, you know, like the last guy that fucked with me was Dan Quayle, and you saw where that went, you know, that whole that whole hullabaloo that from 1996, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just, it was a good moment. It was a really good, like, discovery for me on Thursday night, I believe it was. And I don't know, man, I had a blast with it.
Good. I mean, I'm excited to watch it. I just the fervor that you spoke of it, was unexpected.
Well, that's yeah, you got to see it because that's the kind of fervor that the show is kind of demanding from its fans. You know, demanding in a very playful way. I don't mean to make it sound like it's basically like watch us or get the fuck out. Like that's not the attitude. But there is very much a when you watch it, there's very much like a all right, if you're here, let's do this. This is going to be a very militant ride. Are you ready? Like, let's do it. And so it brings you along. It definitely brings you along on this very, very much like door kicking down attitude that it has. It's fun. It's fun.
Cool. Very cool. Still excited to see it. But honestly, when I heard Murphy Brown was coming back, my first thought is, how do I become one of her receptionists of the week?
Yeah, right. Oh, and a fantastic receptionist of the week this time around. They got a really good guest star for one moment.
Awesome. Don't ruin that either. I'm excited to watch
I will
it.
not.
And we can talk all about it. Good. So I have a question for you, right? Just talking about rough weeks. When's the last time you saw the Transformers movie from 1986?
Not not soon enough. I believe that we did a watching of it through our school's film department. We did a watching of it actually like 4 years ago. Sorry, I'm trying to remember how long it's been since I've been in school. 3 years. Yeah, 3 years ago is when we did it. And I remember going to that and it being a friggin' blast. But why do you bring it up?
Because I saw it on the big screen on Thursday. And
Oh
it was the
man.
first time I ever saw it on the big screen because I was like less than 1 year old when it came out that first time. And until 2005, when I finally got a copy on DVD and sat down and watched it start to finish, I thought that the death of Optimus Prime was the end of that movie.
Oh, no.
And then I saw it in
Okay.
2005, and I'm like,
Could you not bring yourself to watch any further, or what?
no. Like it was a cousin's Christmas party, which is where like all the people that I was like semi-related to would get together for a Christmas party. It was like 92. It was BD, so before Dale. That doesn't work in my family. But it was before Dale, and one of my cousins put it on, and we only got to see that part where Optimus Prime died, and I'm like, wow, this is a powerful movie. And also I'm like, was it 6 years old? So I don't understand that like there's more. And like it was dinner time, so we stopped the movie and ate, and then we couldn't watch any more. So
Man,
then I saw
that's
it.
insane to me. Like, just you spent your whole life thinking that that's just what that movie was. That's awesome. That's so weird, but so
Well,
cool.
not my whole life, because 2005 I bought the DVD, I watched it, and I'm like, all right, so there's more. There's a
So just
lot
a good,
more.
so just a good 10 years where you just thought that was what that movie was.
Right, but then the crazy thing is that like after seeing it in 2005, it became such an important film to me.
Mhm.
Can you think of any other movies that are musicals in the way that Transformers the movie is a musical?
No. Justify that sentence to me, though.
Yeah, okay, well, because it's basically that film is a series of music videos.
Okay, all right. Yeah, well, okay. So basically anything Zack Snyder's ever done, but
But it's different in a way that like the songs that happened in Transformers the movie, like they all mean something to the people who saw that stuff, like Dare and The Touch by Stan Bush, or
nice.
Dare to Be Stupid by Weird Al Yankovic,
Yeah.
like, or even the Transformers theme song. Like these are these songs that like, oh, Not Tonight, Nothing's Gonna Get in Our Way, Not Tonight by Spectre General, which is really like Axholes is the name of the band. um, oh no, Kick Axe is the name of the band. Sorry, but they're like that's too threatening. So we're gonna credit you as Spectre General, and we're not gonna tell you that before we credit you as Spectre General. So if you own a Kick Axe record because of the Transformers movie, you've been on IMDb's trivia site. But it's just one of those things where like it's one of those movies where I like was trying to explain it to Dale because Dale had never seen it. But this is what we did for her birthday. We went to Cello's, we drank, we ate, we had fun, and then we saw Transformers on the big screen. Had a wonderful time. right?
Fantastic.
Everybody, like, it was almost sold out, and everybody was there. It was a lot of like fathers showing their younger sons this movie for the first time, probably. It was great. This kid, I mean, I already mentioned that Optimus Prime dies, so whatever, not spoilers, because it happens within the first like 30 minutes of the movie.
Yes, it is the first act of the film.
It's
yes.
also like that movie's like 70 minutes long. Like they had to put so much extra stuff around the movie to make the ticket worthwhile, which was fun to me. Like I saw a featurette on Bumblebee that made me super excited about Bumblebee, and then Stan Bush talking about those two songs and how he like wrote them and his whole like process, and then he did like a Tiny Desk concert of Dare and the Touch.
That's awesome. That's phenomenal.
Like it was a really great evening, and I don't know if you, I don't know. You saw it like 4 years ago. There's that one swear word that happens in Transformers the movie, and it's when they fly away from Moonbase 2 and they blow up the moon inside of Unicron's mouth to hurt him, and it does nothing. And Spike Witwicky, or like big human character from the series, goes, "Shit, what are we gonna do now?" And the only reason they put that shit in there was to make it a PG movie, because in the 80s, G-rated movies only were guaranteed like 1 or 2 showtimes a day, but a PG movie was guaranteed 5 to 6. So they put in one swear word to make this a PG-rated movie in order to ensure that like the theaters would have to play it more.
That's so good.
Like I went down like a real like long research hole on this film, because I saw it years ago and I really enjoy it. And all these like the iconic Transformers to me are the ones that are introduced in this film, like mostly because like Optimus and them, they existed before I was born, but RC and Hot Rod and Cup, they were all introduced the year I was born. So they're the ones that I know.
And you only ever remember the toys that were bought.
That's also true. That's a weird thing about Transformers culture, is that like, man, I love the one Constructicon who is like a cement truck, because that was the only Transformer I owned for the longest time.
See, and that's why when I was growing up, Transformers, like I was aware of, but I was much more of a Beast Wars dude.
God, I was not even gonna say GoBots, and I'm like,
no.
know you.
Nobody was a GoBots dude. That even the kid that had the GoBots wished he didn't have the GoBots. I was always much more of a Beast Wars dude, because I like the transforming dinosaurs and gorillas and stuff like that. Were the toys that I had. You know, like I said, I was aware of Transformers, and like I liked the idea of transforming trucks and stuff, but to me, it was much cooler to have a Raptor.
Well, yeah, a Dinobot is like the thing that came out of Beast Wars.
Right.
Like he's the one who continues to get figures made to this day.
Right. So like that was always more my speed for that. But man, there's just this. I love that you just thought that it was just ended with him dying, and like so. How do you feel about the back half of it?
Oh, I mean, like, first of all, that movie, for a movie that is marketed to children, is real jumpy. Like, it jumps from, like, it's got such a weird, I'm trying to think of the word, Rashomon. It's like a real Rashomon-style film. Where, like, stuff's just going on all over the place, all at the same time, simultaneously. And you're like, oh, this is crazy. And, like, first of all, it's a Marvel production, right? So you need to consider the fact that like this is one of Marvel's first movies out there. And it's on the heels of Howard the Duck, right? 2 years earlier, Howard the Duck, right? So they're like, we have to do Transformers. And they put so much money into it. Like, you have Leonard Nimoy as Galvatron. You have Orson friggin' Welles as Unicron. Judd Nelson, whose star has never burned brighter, is friggin' the guy who takes over for Optimus Prime. You have all of these actors like who are like real actors. Like, it's also one of those things where people always talk about Aladdin sort of ruined animated films, because it was one of the first times that like a known actor was put in as a voice actor.
And the character was animated to them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the genie is that. Like, yes, all of the people in Beauty and the Beast, we know who they are, but like no one was seeing that movie because David Ogden Stiers was Cogsworth.
Right, exactly.
people were like going to Aladdin because Robin Williams was the genie. To the fact that like legal issues because he's like, I'll be in your movie, but you can't market this movie on that. And Disney's like, we're fucking Disney.
We, no, we won't do that. Yeah, let's see you stop us.
And then they're like, yeah, and then we'll settle, but we'll have already made enough money using your visage and your voice. You idiot. We're Disney.
Oh, Robin Williams. I miss you.
So yeah, how could you not miss him? But it's one of those things where it's like, so, and that was what, 94, 93, right? Was Aladdin? Right. But before that, 7 years before that, Transformers like packed this movie with like people who people knew.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of that is that Transformers has been and always will be a commercial first. So
Oh yeah,
like,
without a doubt.
so right, so like when they made that movie, I don't think anybody was surprised that they went out of their way to do this because like what better marketing than to really fill this 70-minute thing up with just a bunch of actors that probably only came in for 20 minutes worth of work. You know, how long do you think Orson Welles was actually doing his lines for that movie?
It is confirmed that he recorded everything, but he was like at death's door. So most of it is like tuned and processed so like you could actually understand it.
Right.
But like there's a big belief that like Leonard Nimoy stepped in and finished his lines. Not true. Orson Welles recorded all of his lines for the Transformers movie. And when asked about it, his description was, I was a big toy who fought smaller toys. So like all love lost between Orson Welles and Transformers the movie.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
I
man,
made
but-
Citizen Kane, god damn it.
Exactly. So like you kind of have this immediate thing where like it kind of gets a little leeway because we all know that it's just going to try and sell us a bunch of crap. So we kind of let it get away with a lot of things that a movie like say Aladdin, which is a much more veiled attempt to sell us things, but still an attempt to sell us things. I mean, like we can't deny that Disney is out there to get our money. That's what they do. They're a business. But like they try and also provide a very particular type of product to do that. So with like Aladdin, it pisses a lot of people off in a weird way, although nobody would argue this anymore. But back then, it really kind of got stuck in everybody's craw that they were kind of leaning more heavily on this like this whole marketing aspect of bringing in this actor and making it more about him than about the movie itself. It definitely is something that we aren't always willing to give Disney the pass on because they're supposed to be better than that.
Well, no, but I mean that was the first time they did it, and then that's the norm now. The norm
exactly.
is like Mike Myers as Shrek and Eddie Murphy as Donkey and Ryan Reynolds as Turbo. Like those are what those movies are sold on, and that's one of the things it's crazy because thank goodness that's what animated films are sold on now. Because now, if I go to an animated feature, I am usually surprised by whatever the story is. Like Ratatouille, yeah. I'm like, oh, Patton Oswalt's a mouse that controls a guy. Great. I can't wait to see this. And then you're like, we're seeing Ratatouille, get in the car. And I went and I saw Ratatouille, and I absolutely loved it. Because...
Yeah. Well, and, you know, part of it is also, like... I like a good cast, you know, like I don't think there's anything wrong with selling your movie on, hey, look at this awesome cast that we got together to stand behind this product, because especially like look at a guy like Ryan Reynolds, right? Like when he gets behind a project, usually it's because he doesn't have to do every movie that gets handed to him, right? He's not that kind of guy. He's not a Nicolas Cage type of character yet. So like when he's in something, I am interested because it means that it is something that he is interested in being in, and that's always fun to see, right? And I'm thinking of Big Hero 6, not realizing Scott Adsit played Baymax in it, and like just loving Baymax, and then finding out that it was Scott Adsit, and like loving that even more. Like casting when done right and done well, and not leaned into in the marketing, I think is still good and important for an animated movie. The problem is when the marketing leans into it, like come see this new Larry the Cable Guy movie, Cars 2. Oh, okay.
I like Cars 2. I think it's the best one in the franchise. I know that I am the smallest minority who believes that Cars 2 is the best of the franchise.
But you
But
are also savvy enough to realize that that movie is entirely based on the success of Mater,
oh
right?
yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
that. It's not. But the nice thing about it is they could have literally just like, here's Mater in a movie, and you gave us your money already. Go fuck
Mhm,
yourself.
mhm.
But they did a lot to build out the world of Cars,
Yeah.
which is like not a world that I thought I needed to know more about after the first movie. But then it's like, oh, this is really cool. Like this is
Well,
really cool.
and that's Disney doing it right, right? Like they definitely built that movie because they were like, all right, Larry the Cable Guy and Mater were very successful. Let's build a movie around that. But then they still made a decent film out of that, right? Whereas that's the fear is that they're going to start from that point of cast somebody and then we'll build a movie around them. So you look at something like Aladdin and like that's clearly not what happened there, but I can definitely see somebody at the time seeing that and being like, "Oh, well, this is the end now," because all they did was they were like, "Let's give Robin Williams an animated role." And they didn't care about anything else. Now, of course, like I said, like in retrospect, that's clearly not the case because that movie is phenomenal from toe to tip.
Ooh. But but here's the thing. Like Cars 2, the fact that they put that effort into it
Hmm.
is refreshing because
Yeah.
look at the other direct to DVD sequels that had come before it. Look at Return of Jafar. Look at Lady and the Tramp 2 Scamp's Adventure.
I'm sorry, you're trying to talk about bad straight to DVD sequels, and you said Return of Jafar?
I don't think Return of Jafar is that memorable. It's
Return
not
of
like I said
Jafar,
King of
Return
Thieves.
Return of Jafar. It might be more successful. I think it's the most successful Disney sequel,
It
actually.
is the most successful Disney sequel, but the reason for that is the reason why most sequels are successful their first weekend and then drop off. People were so fucking excited to have more Aladdin.
Hmm.
And then they got Return of Jafar. Think about it. You don't
Yeah.
have Robin Williams anymore. It's Dan Castellaneta. It's Homer Simpson as the genie because of that legal battle we referenced earlier. And like, I don't think that. I mean, if that were true, if the success of Return of Jafar were like true, then King of Thieves would be as successful, if not more. And it's not. And King of Thieves is a better movie than Return of Jafar, just like on paper.
I it's weird when you start talking about the Disney sequels because there's definitely a moment when they became trash, but there was I don't know, man. There was a while there where they were trying real hard. Like look at all of like the Bell story time stuff and things like that. Like Disney lost the thread somewhere, and I don't know if Aladdin is early enough for it. I think that it's a little bit later than that.
Okay, but what I'm saying is everybody is judgmental about Cars 2. They're like,
Hmm.
this was a cash in on the Mater character, blah, 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 blah. But, like, it's not like Disney hadn't been doing that for a while.
Oh yeah.
And the nice thing is that Cars 2, actually, you can see the care that they put into it.
Yeah.
Where, like, look at Belle's Magical Story Time, the second Beauty and the Beast sequel. And it is not very good.
Yeah.
Where,
No,
like,
I mean, like, yeah, no, there's definitely Brother Bear 2, right?
exactly, that's what I was going to bring up.
Is-
Is Brother Bear 2 is fucking. I am not a fan of a transformation story where the change at the end is that someone else becomes a bear and then they live happy as bears. It's like
Yeah.
Dogomatic. Like the guy switches bodies with his dog, and then at the end, the girl he liked when he was a human, the same like random accident occurs as she switches bodies with her dog, and then they're together as dogs, and their human bodies are together as the dogs in the human bodies.
Yeah, that's horrific.
That's horrific.
That is horrifying. That's the scariest story you've ever told me.
Oh man, Dogomatic. And here's the crazy thing about Dogomatic, right? Is the guy who plays the dog, like who becomes the dog, he is Dr. Tom on Being Erica. And you have to if you've seen Dogomatic and you're gonna watch Being Erica, every time an episode starts, you need to be like, it's not Dogomatic. Everything's
It's
gonna be okay.
that's not the dog. That's
He's,
not the
he's Dr. Tom. He's Dr. Tom. He's not Dogomatic.
He didn't become a dog and then get cast in the show. That's not a dog that they cast in the show
Like,
in a human
because
form.
like you need to understand, like, as a kid I saw that in Wonderful World of Disney Sunday night movie. I watched that movie and I'm like, all right, so the end of this, he's gonna switch back and he learned an important lesson, like how these stories go. Nope.
Nope.
Nope. So that's where I think we're gonna end it. With Dog-O-Matic. Whenever Dog-O-Matic comes up, that's kind of like the end.
Yeah, you kind of killed it.
Concerned. Sorry, fans of Dog-O-Matic, but like honestly, if you were out there and you have heard about Dog-O-Matic before this podcast, let us know at the Say Report on Twitter, because I'd like to know. I'd like to know how you reacted the first time you saw it.
And if you want to talk to me about how great Return of Jafar is, you can get me at Siege versus the World.
And if you want to chastise me for how bad I think Return of Jafar is, I'm at Devin D. Decker. And until that time, Will show us a whole new world.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.